You know, in the world of intelligence, some secrets are meant to stay buried forever. But today, we're going to dig them up. We're looking at declassified government operations that are so sensitive, they really stretch the very definition of national security. It's a question, right? Sounds like it's pulled straight from the beginning of a spy thriller. But as we're about to find out, sometimes the truth is way stranger and frankly, more unsettling than any fiction you could dream up. And I want to be super clear about this. Everything we are covering today comes directly from official documents, things that have actually been released to the public. So these aren't conspiracy theories, these are confirmed historical operations. Okay, let's dive in. So our first case file takes us back to the rubble of World War II. Nazi Germany was defeated, but a brand new conflict was already brewing on the horizon, the Cold War. And the US realized pretty quickly that it needed a technological edge over the Soviet Union, and it was willing to get it no matter the cost. Under the code name Operation Paperclip, the United States quietly brought over, get this, more than 1,600 German scientific minds. The goal was twofold. First, harness their expertise for American interests, and second, just as important, keep them out of Soviet hands. Now, this is where it gets really wild. The contrast here is just staggering. These weren't just brilliant scientists. A lot of them had incredibly dark, disturbing pasts. Take Werner von Braun, for instance, a former SS officer whose V-2 rocket was built using brutal slave labor. Well, he became a celebrated NASA director. Others who were involved in horrific human experiments in concentration camps. They were given prestigious roles pushing the boundaries of American science. And in a twist that is just truly surreal, some even consulted for companies like Disney. And you have to understand, this wasn't an accident. This was a deliberate choice. The US government actively worked to conceal the backgrounds of these scientists, their Nazi affiliations, their involvement in war crimes. It was all systematically scrubbed from their records. The reason was pretty simple. Winning the tech race was everything. Okay, let's move to our next case and see how this all connects. After securing foreign assets, the focus turned inward. The new battlefield wasn't going to be in the sky, it was going to be in the hearts and minds of the American people. Back then, the fear of communist influence spreading within the US was something you could almost feel in the air. The CIA decided that to fight this ideological war, it needed to control the narrative. They had to make sure Americans saw the world and communism through one very specific lens. And the plan they came up with, honestly, it was breathtaking in its scope. Through something called Operation Mockingbird, the CIA secretly recruited top journalists and editors from the most trusted media outlets in the country. They weren't just watching the news anymore. They were creating it. They were planting stories, shaping public opinion, all to push a pro-American, anti-Soviet agenda. And the impact of this, it was massive. This operation basically fueled the Red Scare, turning neighbor against neighbor, all because of the suspicion that someone might be a communist sympathizer. It completely blurred the line between journalism and intelligence work, and it just eroded public trust in the very institutions that were supposed to inform them. So this whole thing ran for decades, right, under everyone's noses. It wasn't until the 1970s, when public trust in the government was at rock bottom, that a special Senate investigation, they called it the Church Committee, finally blew the whistle. It exposed Mockingbird and a whole bunch of other shocking abuses of power by US intelligence agencies. All right, but this last case file, this one reveals a plan so absolutely audacious, it's hard to even believe it's real. This wasn't about influencing public opinion anymore. No, this was about manufacturing an actual reason to go to war. So the whole plan hinged on this concept known as a false flag operation. What is that? Well, it's pretty simple and pretty dark. It means you attack your own side, or you stage an attack, and then you convincingly blame your enemy so you have a justification to retaliate. It's a truly deceptive tactic. So think about the early 1960s. Fidel Castro's communist Cuba was seen as this huge threat, right? It's just 90 miles off the coast to Florida. After the disaster of the Bay of Pigs invasion, the US Department of Defense drafted something called Operation Northwoods. It was a whole series of proposals designed to create an undeniable reason for war. And listen to this quote. This is taken directly from the declassified document, word for word. It is absolutely chilling. It's not some vague idea. It's a detailed proposal to sacrifice innocent lives for a political goal. And the plan wasn't just some vague idea. It was horrifyingly specific. As you can see here, they would literally swap a real passenger plane with an identical duplicate. The real plane, filled with passengers traveling under fake names, would land safely in secret. At the same time, an empty, remote-controlled drone version would continue on the flight path, fly over Cuba, broadcast a fake Mayday call, and then be blown up. The world would blame Cuba for an atrocity that never even happened. Now, you might think this was just some crazy idea from a rogue agent, right? No, this plan was signed and approved by every single member of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the highest-ranking military leaders in the entire country. It went all the way to the top. Thankfully, President Kennedy's administration rejected the proposal. It was shelved, never to be carried out. So when you look at these three operations together, Paperclip, Mockingbird, and Northwoods, you get this really sobering look into a world where the ends were believed to justify almost any means. They show us what happens when the idea of national security is pushed to its absolute terrifying limit. And that really leaves us with one final, kind of unavoidable question, doesn't it? These are the stories we know about, all because the documents were eventually declassified. It just forces you to wonder, what other operations, what other secrets are still out there, waiting in the dark? Welcome to The Explainer. We're diving into a world where pigeons had cameras and lipstick could kill. Sounds like a weird riddle, right? But the answer? It's the secret toolbox of Cold War spies. Yep. During the Cold War, intelligence agencies got really creative with their spy gadgets. Get this. The CIA actually strapped cameras to pigeons for a literal bird's-eye view of enemy territory. And then there was this tiny dragonfly drone. It was basically a flying microphone for recording secret chats. The Soviets hid this in a gift to the US. No power source. And it went undetected for 7 years. So gadgets ranged from deadly to, well, let's just call the rectal toolkit deeply uncomfortable. But what was all this crazy tech actually for? It was for a much, much bigger secret game. Yeah, we're moving beyond gadgets now, into a world where truth itself was the ultimate weapon. Okay, check this out. In the 50s, the CIA launched an operation to literally weaponize the news. They secretly paid journalists to plant stories and control what people believed for decades. But messing with the news wasn't enough. Some plans were way more extreme, like creating a reason for war. In '62, US military leaders dreamed up this insane plan to justify a war with Castro's Cuba. The plan was to stage fake terrorist attacks on US soil, and then just blame Cuba for it. Now, this plan was so extreme it got rejected, which is a key point here. Because sometimes the plans that do get approved, they backfire in a huge way. Take Operation Merlin. The CIA wanted to sabotage Iran's nuclear program with flawed blueprints. Simple, right? Well, let's just say it wasn't so simple. Here's how it all went completely wrong. So yeah, the CIA might have accidentally helped Iran's nuclear program. A huge miscalculation. So you can see the gap between the goal and reality. Espionage aims for control, but often finds chaos. It really makes you wonder, in this quest for total security, is any amount of control truly possible?